Continuing to keep you updated on the Mica Miller and John Paul Miller case. New information revealed about that. Well, I guess you could almost call it the day that will live in infamy forever, that being March 11th. This is a date that has been hyped up by JP in one of his newer videos that he, talked about all you super sleuths out there to remember that date because it's going to come into play. As far as this, case that JP is trying to build that somehow, makes him the hero in the situation and Mica the villain, we were all kind of wondering what he meant by that. And well, in one of his latest videos, we may have a little bit more insight into what it was that he was talking about there. Although, well, when it comes to JP, we know that not everything is as it seems. So we are going to discuss that. And also, we're going to get into the situation involving JP and these videos because, myself and many others, we've asked the question, what do JP's lawyers think about him putting out all these statements? Well, we're going to get into that. And also...
yeah, they have to be like, what are you doing?
We're going to talk about the current relationship between JP and Susie Skinner. We know that the two of them were spotted together the week after Mica died, but even years prior to that, they were spotted together. Well, what about now? Is Susie still with JP, or has she taken the hit, based off everything that we know that's now come out about this guy, and has she, gotten out of town, gotten away from this guy? We're going to talk about that too. But also, to kind of round things off, we are going to get into the sermon that JP preached that was the Sunday after the events that took place on March 11th. It was very interesting. I hope you'll stick with me. But before we even get started with all of this, I want to welcome all of you to Not By Sight News. Yes, blind Christian guy here reporting to you, reminding you as always.
Oh, he's actually blind. Wow.
We walk by faith, not by sight. For someone like me, that's kind of my only option. Speaking of that, for those interested, you want to know my story. How did I go blind? How do I operate my entire ministry without being able to see? Made a video that explains it all. You'll find a link to that in the description section of all my videos. And if you really enjoy and appreciate the work I do here and you would like to bless me with a donation, a couple different ways you could do that. One, just hit the super thanks button on the YT video here, or join the Patreon for as little as $5 a month at patreon.com/notbysightnews. Link in the description. Hey, do you want to get access to all of these videos before they hit the main YT channel? Well, when you sign up to my Patreon, that's exactly what you are going to get, along with a bunch of other cool features. I hope you'll check it out and join me. Again, it's patreon.com/notbysightnews. Big thank you to everybody already contributing and those thinking of doing so. Thank you as well. Your generosity is greatly appreciated. Before we get into this, I just want to thank you all again for your prayers. I am battling this virus, whatever this may be, that's kind of been kicking my butt, to be perfectly honest with you. But you know what? I'm pressing through it, dedicated to bringing you guys this news, even if I don't feel my greatest. But again, I appreciate it.
Well, we hope you feel better.
Thank you for putting up with my voice the way that it sounds and everything. So the work never stops.
Sounds pretty normal, bro. You're good, man.
For somebody like myself and what it is that I do. So again, I thank you all for that. I'm trying to get some sleep in where I can. Did a lot of sleeping actually today. But now here I am. I'm not one of those that can just kind of sit still and do nothing. So, so here I am. We got to get into this because, yes, we're covering the Mica Miller and John Paul Miller case. Now, what I want to start off with here is JP's videos, because this is a question that we were all asking, right? How could it be that the lawyers would actually approve this? This guy coming in almost nightly. By my count, now this is the latest video that we're going to discuss here is actually from June 18th, so I may be a little bit behind just because of the way I've been feeling lately. I haven't been getting these up as quick as I would have wanted to, but we'll keep covering it for you no matter when we do. I'll try to make sure I mention the date that it was released. But this is from June 18th, and JP actually addressed the question as far as how he found True Crimery, the channel on TikTok that he's been using to put out these videos, or more like how True Crimery found him. That's according to JP, that True Crimery reached out to him and said that they wanted to give him a platform to share his story. JP claims that he doesn't feel that True Crimery, he did refer to True Crimery as a she, that she didn't have any sort of an agenda, and that she wanted to give him a fair platform. Now, he also claims that his lawyers are perfectly okay with him coming out every night and speaking. Now,
what attorney wants you to speak ever? No, they say shut the hell up. Have y'all seen that there's people that think that the True Crime thing, True Crime or RI, Rhode Island, is actually JP? Have y'all seen that? Is there any truth behind that? Has anybody done any digging and find out? Some people think that that's just him.
Just my opinion, I don't believe this for 1 second. I don't believe it for 1 second. Now, there's some that are making the claims, well, because he's paying them. I mean, how can they really tell him what to do? Look, if it's good,
They can, but it does, whether or not he listens is a totally different thing.
to affect, his time, whether he spends time behind bars or not, or whether he gets convicted of something. I think he should care. And I think that the lawyer's opinions would actually carry some weight when it comes to that. They can't be happy with this. But he's claiming that, no, they've given him their blessing to go out here, say what you want, say your piece, speak your truth. We'll find out. We will find out if that's the case, because, again, anything this guy says is being watched by the FBI, as he is under investigation. And you also have to know that anybody who is in, direct communication with JP, they too will most likely be monitored by the FBI, and that would include the True Crimery channel. Now, some believe that this TikTok channel is just actually JP, and it's not another person. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know.
That part.
Again, it's hard to believe anything that comes out of JP's mouth. Sometimes he says some truths, but they're more like half-truths, and then, the rest of it gets exposed as lies. But yeah, anybody that's speaking directly to him, even Susie Skinner. What about Charles Randall, his so-called spiritual advisor? So you have all these people that have to be very careful when communicating directly with this guy, knowing that he's under investigation. So that was kind of like the gist of what his June 18th video was all about. It was just basically explaining how he came to know the True Crimery channel and how that relationship got started. And, that his lawyers are approving what it is that he's doing. So I'll let you guys let me know your thoughts on that, and if you really do believe that the lawyers have given him a blessing to do this. And again, I don't think that they did. But that's
unhinged bananas crazy.
Just my opinion. You may have a different one. Okay, let me move on to this next point here, and that is the events of March 11th. There's a lot to get into with this. New information has now come in that says that there was a lot of police reports that were filed that day, but at least 3 of them that we know of now that were filed against JP. The first police report, according to sources, because there's many boots on the ground that are down there in the Myrtle Beach area that have contacts to the situation, they're claiming that the first police report was filed against JP at around 1:20 in the morning, just shortly after 1 a.m. on March 11th. And of course, this was, the one incident where Mica's tires were found with razor blades in them, that JP had them slashed, right? We know that he also had a PI that was following Mica around. And just all these other police reports started to be filed by Mica, for the tracking and for everything else that JP was doing to her that day. Now, in the state of South Carolina, this is some new information that was real. I didn't know about this. But, because we know Mica was trying to obtain a restraining order against JP. Apparently, you have to have filed at least 3 separate police reports against an individual before you can obtain a restraining order. Well, you had that here on March
Dang, that's crazy.
11th. And JP knew what it was that Mica was trying to do. Now, the PI had apparently followed Mica to a beach where Mica was seen with another man. Now, I want to point out here, because this is what when I talk about some twisted truth. Because if you remember, JP had started telling his congregation that, in fact, Mica was having an affair with a teenager, okay? Remember what happened years before that, right? When JP's first wife, Allison, in her affidavit, said that JP was having a bunch of inappropriate behavior with, multiple individuals in the church that were under 16, okay? So here he was saying that Mica was, having an affair with a teen.
You what?
Whoa.
Now, the PI had followed Mica to the beach. Now, this, I will tell you, this part of the story is true. Sources have confirmed this, okay? Mica was seen at the beach, and she was kissing another guy, okay? It was not JP, it was another guy. I also want to point out here, remember, this is March 11th. Mica had left JP in February. Remember, Mica was, involuntarily committed into that mental hospital against her will, and she had made the decision about she's done with this guy, right? They were going to be separated. It was done. And JP thought that Mica was going to be in that hospital for a long time. He was shocked to find out she was out of that hospital within 2 days, right? They couldn't hold her. And what was he doing in the meantime? Stealing her car, trying to get up all the evidence, against him that she was gathering up to try and bring this guy down. All of this stuff. What it appears that he was trying to do was build a case against her, that she violated South Carolina law, which actually states for grounds if there's adultery in the marriage, well, you wouldn't have to pay your spouse anything. No alimony, they wouldn't get anything. Well, what are we seeing right now take place? There is a battle for Mica's estate. And we know that based off previous reports, that JP's assets and everything with Solid Rock are valued up over like $5.5 million. So you don't think for one second that this guy was trying to frame her and trying to, gather up all this evidence to try to build this case of adultery against Mica so that he didn't have to pay her any money? Yeah. All the while, he had been running around with Susie Skinner in an affair of his own for the past several years. Of course, we know that right after Susie's first husband, Chris Skinner, mysteriously passed away Labor Day in 2021 when he, somehow rolled his wheelchair into a pool and drowned. And then JP and Susie became a little bit more exclusive, even though they were seeing each other even before that. And it was reported that...
Was it like just a few days beforehand that guy told him to stay away from his family or whatever?
Chris had gone to JP about 2 weeks before his death, and he told JP to leave his wife and family alone.
Damn.
How dare you?
Then the guy ends up dead like two weeks later. A little suspicious, right? You guys don't mind, take a quick pause. I said a little drink of water here for the throat as I go through this. I told you I'm battling through this thing. Okay. Water's good for you when you're not feeling good. But again, I'm committed to bring you guys this news.
Hey, it's always good for you, man. Stay hydrated, y'all. In fact, everybody, hey, cheers. Stay hydrated, Let's keep it going.
So, we know that's the deal with Chris. And, JP trying to catch Mica in this affair, when all the while he's running around with Susie for the past couple of years on Mica, okay? And Mica had said this in her, her own affidavit and reports that JP had cheated on her numerous times, okay? And this was before that they were actually separated. So, getting back to the beach situation, because, yeah, it was confirmed. Mica did kiss this guy, okay? And the PI apparently gathered up pictures and video of all of that, which they were going to try and use against Mica. Now, we've also revealed who this individual was that Mica was on the beach with. Turns out that it was JP's intern.
Excuse me.
Now, we don't know yet the name of the individual. There may be some that know the name, or JP himself may reveal the name at some point. But this individual was apparently...
Thanks, y'all. Amanda, Eric.
Being trained by JP and in preaching, and he was going to just kind of bring him up as, like, his next guy, really, as it came to the church. Now, remember JP said that Mica had an affair with a teen in the church. Okay, we understand that according to sources, this intern was around the age of 19 or 20. Okay, so he was 19. Is he technically a teen? Yeah, but also some are saying that he was 20. Now, Mica would have been 29 years old at the time. So you're talking a 9-year age difference here. JP is like 15 years older than Mica. Okay, so JP was trying to paint this picture that Mica was having this affair with somebody that was probably in their early teens, the way that he was, kind of phrasing it. Also, it was one kiss that the two shared. Mica probably felt that she could trust this guy, this intern, everything that she was going through. However, according to what many of Mica's friends and other sources say, the two of them never took things further than just that one kiss on the beach. Now, that's what they're saying. Whether they did or not, I don't really know. Only God truly knows whether or not that was happening. But let's just be honest here. This marriage was done with, okay? Had been done with for a long time prior to that. But for JP to try and frame this, that she was having an affair on him, is absolutely crazy. Because again, he was trying
unhinged bananas crazy
to use this as ammo so that he would not have to in any way pay any alimony or give her anything in the divorce, right? Because you can, divorce under these circumstances. Remember, he was also transferring assets around at that point too. Remember, he was moving, things in his house into the church and then moving things around to his son. He was getting ready. He thought that he had it all figured out. Now, getting back to the intern here for a second, we also learned that this intern, after JP had learned that, Mica had kissed on the beach, he banned him from the church. Well, if you think about it, JP has a history of banning people from the church because he also banned somebody from the church that also got very close to Mica, and that's that older woman, Diana. She's a woman that was in her 80s that Mica was most recently staying with. And I reported this on another video, but when JP found out about it, he banned...
How are you going to ban a 90-year-old woman from the church?
How dare you?
That's crazy as hell. Oh, my God.
Diana from the church, too. So that's kind of what he did. He made JP mad, he'll ban you from the church, right? So that's what he did here. So we have this case now where, the March 11 incidents, and again, I also want to highlight this other part because this ties into the story. We know that video was released of Mica and JP at the Honda dealership, right? Mica was getting the car fixed because that was also the same day that, the razor blades were found in her tires. JP showed up
The tire deflation device.
there to the Honda dealership to bother Mica. And, this is when he said that he was going to put that topless photo of her on Facebook. Remember, he said it'll be up on Facebook in a few hours. And then Mica told him to walk away and that, you'll be in jail in a few hours. So then he finally walked away. So this is what this was referring to, was this incident on March 11th. Again, the day that all these police reports were filed here between the two. And then we know that JP eventually did go put that picture up on a Facebook group. And then he ended up emailing Mica a few weeks later, I think it was the middle of April, where he actually apologized for that and said that he didn't mean it. It was an evil act. He also admitted to causing damage to her vehicles, and if she came back home, well, he would get her a new vehicle. But remember the video that came out prior to the one that he put out on June 18th. He was basically saying that none of that ever happened. I didn't damage the car. I didn't put tracking devices on it. I didn't do anything with a topless photo, but you did. So he's outright lying then. So it was already
pretty crazy.
It was already all proven. So going back to what JP said on his June 18th video, how is it exactly that his lawyers approved him doing these videos when he's just basically lying? That's why I can't believe this, because all of this has already been debunked. I mean, you have JP in email transcripts and everything else admitting to doing these things. But he's saying now in these TikTok videos that he didn't do it. And he was trying to build this case against Mica so that he
It wasn't me, but got him when it's over. It wasn't me.
wouldn't have to pay anything. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, let me get to this other part here about Susie and JP, because there's apparently a lot of people that follow JP around. Obviously, in South Carolina, there in Myrtle Beach, because of, who he is and everything. Well, according to those sources on the ground, they have spotted JP and Susie meeting up at this ballpark that's very close to the church, where they've been meeting up apparently almost every night. And what they've witnessed is that
Every night? Whoa.
on some nights you have JP getting into Susie's car, and other nights you have Susie getting into JP's car, and then the two of them are driving off together, only assuming that they're driving off to one of the other's homes. So, for any that were asking the question as to whether or not Susie was still involved with JP, the answer to that question would be a resounding yes. And that's not good, because with everything that has now come out about this guy in the last 2 months, Susie is still with him, which means that this man's spell is still very strong. He is still very impressionable upon people, and that's what I want others to understand, because there is still a huge amount of people out there that are supporting this man and believe what he is saying. And is the church dwindling down in members? Yes, but there are still a lot of people around the world that actually buy what this guy is saying, because he's doing these videos to try and somehow create this, image of him being a sympathetic figure. And if Susie hasn't woken up to this by now, I mean, I fear for her, because, you don't want her to go down the same road as Mica or Allison Williams, his first wife. I wish somebody like Allison could, talk to Susie and tell her, like, you need to get away from this guy. Like, he's not who he claims to be. And she could speak from that experience, or even Mica's own family could tell Susie Skinner. But that's apparently what people are seeing there on the ground. Now, let me end on this point, because the Sunday after March 11th, the sermon that JP preached, this was, you want to talk about twisting around a narrative. That's exactly what he did. And kudos to everybody who, dug this up, because there's a lot of good investigators out there that have been combing through JP's sermons of the past and trying to look for these clues. But in the sermon, JP basically tells the story, recapping the events of him and Mica on March 11th. But what he does is he tells the story by saying that it was from a pastor friend of his. So he says that he gets a call from a friend of his who's a pastor.
Oh, yeah, and he literally said the entire story.
Who had suspicions about his wife possibly having an affair. And he hired an investigative firm to, try to find her. So one day he was just saying that, the wife just left and the pastor was very concerned about her. So he hires this team to go find her. And then lo and behold, they find out that, she was with another man, that she had cheated on him. And the pastor was furious and he wanted to divorce her and, had every grounds to do it. Talked to his lawyers and said that you have a right to do it because of adultery. And, in South Carolina, you wouldn't have to pay a single thing. You wouldn't have to pay a dime for what happened. And And so he's just replacing him and Mica with his pastor's friend because he was trying to build sympathy. And again, he told the church. He told the church about Mica's, relationship. He said she had an affair with a teen. And he used that sermon. He lied and said it was a pastor friend of his that called him. It wasn't a pastor's friend. It was him himself. It was JP the whole time.
Whoa.
And talking about how, but at the end of the day, I wanted to forgive. I wanted to choose to forgive instead, trying to, again, gain more sympathy. Because Jesus says that he would never leave us or forsake us. And so I wanted to be the same way. You see how easy it is for pastors to do this. And by the way, there are a ton of other pastors that do this on a weekly basis that aren't even JP, that do this from the pulpit. They can manipulate, though, in many other ways. They can manipulate very strongly through money. Many churches that do this, especially ones that promote the prosperity gospel, they just don't get as much attention. But yeah, this whole sermon that he preached after March 11th was just pure manipulation. Pure manipulation. So I think we'll leave it there. I think I hit on all the notes I wanted to cover as far as this update. If I left anything out, I apologize. And I will bring it up in a future video. But I want to get your thoughts on this as well. You can drop them down below in the comment section. What do you think about this? Did JP really get the approval of his attorneys to to do these videos on TikTok? What do you think about the events of March 11th? The so-called beach affair with Mica and JP's intern? Let me know that as well.